Hi, I'm Larry Richardson, your step-by-step chef. In this episode, we're going to make a very quick and easy chicken cacciatore. Now, I have a more complicated version of chicken cacciatore on stepbystepchef.com, but this is for people who are kind of in a rush and they just want a really tasty meal on a shoestring. So I think you're going to like this, so come on, let's cook. Okay, so here are the ingredients we're going to use for our quick and easy chicken cacciatore. The first thing I have is just over a half a pound of boneless, skinless chicken. Now, I like to work with boneless, skinless chicken in chicken cacciatore because, quite frankly, I don't really like it all that greasy. So I try to use boneless, skinless. If you like yours with the, the chicken pieces with the skin on and with the fat kind of melting into the sauce a little bit, you will have to cook that for a little bit longer, and you'll probably have to cook that in the oven until those pieces are cooked through. But I really do prefer to make this with boneless, skinless chicken breast. The other thing we're going to do is use a 12-ounce bottle of your favorite tomato sauce. That's a marinara that I'm using. And I have 16 ounces of egg noodles, which we'll serve this on. Then we have 8 ounces of white mushrooms that we're going to chop down. I have a sweet red pepper that we're going to use about a quarter cup of that minced. We also have a head of garlic. We're going to use 2 cloves of garlic, but you can also substitute about a quarter to a half a teaspoon of dried garlic powder if you can't get your hands on fresh garlic. We're also going to use 2 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil, about a half a teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of Italian seasonings, and a half a teaspoon of onion powder, if you have that. That's totally optional. And then the final thing we're going to use is a quarter cup of sweet onion minced. And if you don't have the sweet, the yellow and the white onions are just fine. So let me show you how to put all this together. And the first thing we're going to do is just prepare our veggies. So I'm just going to cut off a piece of this red pepper, the sweet red pepper, and this will give me about a quarter cup of minced sweet red pepper. Just adds a nice freshness to this dish, but you don't want to add too much of it because it will take it over. If you don't have sweet red pepper, you can certainly use green pepper. I mean, they have yellow pepper and orange peppers too. So it's totally up to you which one you like the best. I really love these sweet red peppers. So you can see I cleaned out the seeds in the core, and now I'm just cutting it into strips and then just going down. This is a real rough mince. It doesn't have to be super fine. You could even call it a dice if you want. These pieces are on the larger side, and you do want them to stand out distinct in this cacciatore. So there we go. That wasn't so bad, was it? And I'm putting our veggies into this one bowl. And then we have our sweet onion, and I just want to get rid of some of the peel. This is sweet onion I did use in another recipe, so that's why you're seeing it as half of a sweet onion. I don't like to throw anything away. And then what we do is we just score the top, and the lines on this can be a little bit, like about a quarter of an inch separated. It doesn't have to be super fine. Again, the onion, we want it to stand out just slightly in this recipe. So I'm going one way, and then I'm going perpendicular. So I'm just crossing it. There we go. And then I just cut down the face. This will give us our quarter cup of sweet onion. Now I did rinse off the red pepper, and I did rinse off these mushrooms. So the mushrooms, let me just move this onion aside. The mushrooms, I'm just giving them a rough chop too. So just like this. And they're about 1/8 of an inch thick, so you just go down like that. And just leave them in these larger pieces because when we saute them, they will shrink down. And you can use as much or as little of these ingredients as you like. This is what I like to do. And I love a really mushroom-rich cacciatore. So that's all I'm doing. I'm just going to chop these up. So you can see our mushrooms are all chopped up. I'm just going to set those aside. And now we'll just take our 2 garlic cloves. And what you want to do with these is either finely mince them, or if you have a crusher, crush them. If you don't have the fresh garlic at all, like I said, just add a little bit of the powdered garlic and you should be just fine. So there's my 2 cloves. Now those cloves are kind of small, and I'm a garlic lover, so I'm going to add 1 more. We can always adjust the recipe. And we're putting this in a separate bowl because the garlic tends to cook faster than the other vegetables. And if I add it early in the process, it will scorch or caramelize, and we don't want that. So you can see this crusher is just taking the skin right off of the garlic. And that's it for the garlic. So now I'm going to get the chicken. And with the chicken, what we're going to do is just cut it into these kind of little strips. That's just fine. Kind of medallions. And, I'll cut them down just a little bit more than this. I like it bite-sized in this dish. It just makes it easier to eat on the run. Let me just get rid of that. Okay. And like I just did, trim it as you go. You don't want people eating a piece of bone or a big chunk of fat, so trim it. Okay, and now I'm just going to take these pieces and just give them a rough cut. And this makes the chicken a lot easier to work with too in the frying pan. It will cook a lot faster if we dice it ahead of time. And that will work great. And I'm going to put this in a separate bowl too. And then I'm going to give my my cutting board a quick wash. I don't like to have chicken sitting on the cutting board. Wash your hands when you work with chicken, and make sure to wash your cutting board and any of the utensils that you use with it. That way you won't have any problem with salmonella or anything else. So I'm just going to go do that, and then I'll meet you over at the stove. Okay, so I have my noodle water already heating up because we'll want that pasta ready when we're ready to roll. And I'm just going to add our olive oil to this pan. There we go. And then let's brown our chicken. And since we cut the chicken, it shouldn't take that long for us to cook it all the way through. We don't want to see any pink meat. That'll tell us that it's done. So again, this is on about medium heat. If your stove's a little faster or a little slower than mine, certainly adjust that heat. You don't want the olive oil steaming or smoking. On the other hand, you don't want the chicken to just be sitting in a pool waiting for something to happen either. So just kind of keep it moving around. You can see it's browning pretty fast. So about 5 minutes later, I'm not seeing much pink on the meat. So what I'm going to do is add our Italian seasonings. And the reason I like to do this is it gives the meat a little bit of a distinct flavor. So it's not just chunks of chicken floating around in tomato sauce, it actually has a taste of its own. So I just added our Italian seasonings. I'm going to add a little bit of our onion powder. And again, this is optional. And then I'm just going to add some salt. Helps to give the meat its own flavor. So it'll stand up in the sauce a lot better. So that is Italian chicken, Italian fried chicken. So I'm just going to let those cook in for a minute or two. And then we're going to add our vegetables and saute them with the chicken so everything gets a nice flavor. Okay, so now the chicken has a personality of its own. Now let's add our veggies and give them a nice saute. And the chicken will continue to cook while we do this. And the reason I cook the chicken ahead of time before adding the veggies is I want to make sure that it's well cooked before I do this. I don't want to risk having any uncooked chicken floating around in the pan. Kind of like if the chicken, like let's say there were a couple of pieces that stayed up on the top the whole time I was doing my stirring, as we're doing the saute, I would just worry that they didn't cook through. Now, fortunately with this dish, the sauce, as it heats up, will cook it through too. But I just like to be on the safe side when I'm dealing with chicken. So give it a nice stir. And what we're looking for is for the mushrooms to shrink down and appear just a little bit translucent, just slightly clear. We don't want big pieces of crunchy mushroom in this dish. They have to be cooked. So I'll see you in about 5 minutes. We'll take a look at what happened. Okay, so 5 minutes later, look, the mushrooms have cooked down nicely. So we don't have a pile of crispy mushrooms, we have a pile of sauteed mushrooms. So now what we're going to do is add our garlic. We're just going to stir it in. And if you have the garlic powder, you can add that at this point too. I'm just going to stir it in. Wow. What a nice aroma. Just let it get nice and mixed in. We'll do this for about a minute. Now the reason I'm using the store-bought pasta sauce is it saves us the time of having to add a lot of other herbs and spices to flavor this recipe. You could literally add a can of like crushed tomatoes to this, or tomato puree, and just ramp up the herbs a little bit, and it would come out fine. But we're looking for quick and easy with this series. And there are so many good store-bought sauces out there, but what I like to do when I'm camping or we're under a kind of a hurricane situation or some other emergency, I like to have these kinds of ingredients handy, because I can take a bottled marinara sauce and ramp it up. I can ramp up the nutrition and the flavor. So this is ready for me to add our marinara sauce. Add your favorite. And you can see how quickly that just fleshed it out. And what we're going to do now is just bring this to a simmer, and once it's at a simmer, it will be ready to serve on our noodles. So what I suggest you do right now is get your noodles in that boiling water. I think I can say that on TV, but that's pretty much what we're looking for. And if this starts to really quick simmer, turn your heat down. I'm going to cover this right now. And we're just looking for it to get a nice slow simmer, some bubbles going, and then it will be ready to serve. You can let it simmer for a little bit longer if you like, but since we're using a jarred marinara, it doesn't need to cook as long as a regular spaghetti sauce. So that's another reason why this is a time-saving recipe, a delicious time-saving recipe. So now I'm going to prepare my noodles, and I'll give you a quick look at this when it's done, and then we'll wrap it up. And here we are, our chicken cacciatore has been simmering, so you can see it is steamy hot and ready to serve. Boy, is that going to be tasty. So congratulations, look at what you just made. You just made this delicious, quick and easy chicken cacciatore. That wasn't too hard, was it? Now I do have a little bit more complex version of this on stepbystepchef.com. And if you go to my website, you will find a printable version of this recipe. And you'll also find printable recipes and video links, free video links, for probably 140 or more recipes at the time I was filming this. The other thing you're going to find, which will mean you don't have to print every recipe on the website, is this, my cookbook, Cooking with the Step-by-Step Chef. And I'm going to update this every November, so not every recipe is in there, but I will keep adding and adding to this book as we explore just this amazing culinary world. Wow, I couldn't believe I actually was able to say culinary. So please do check out the book. It's a perfect gift for yourself, for your family, for your friends, and for just about everybody you know who wants to learn how to cook the step-by-step way. I will stand there in video form and show them how to make every recipe. So my name is Larry Richardson. I am your step-by-step chef, and I'll see you in the next episode.